All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to go on a whirlwind tour, a sprint through more than 500,000 years of history. We'll start with the very first tool makers, jump to some of the world's first planned cities, and land in the middle of grand empires that shaped an entire subcontinent. It's going to be a marathon.
So, to get our bearings, let's look at our roadmap. We're kicking things off 500,000 years ago, in a world of simple stone tools, and we're ending up in a golden age of science and art. And you have to remember, each stop on this timeline isn't just a date, it's a massive revolution in how people lived, thought, and built their world.
So, where do we begin? Well, we have to go way, way back to the deep past. We're talking about the Stone Age. This is the absolute dawn of human innovation, a time when just shaping a rock was the most cutting-edge technology on the entire planet.
Now, this progress wasn't some overnight success story. It happened in stages, in 3 acts. First, you have the Paleolithic, where it's all about survival with basic flake tools. Then comes the Mesolithic, a period of refinement with these tiny, more precise tools called microliths. But the Neolithic, well, that was the true game changer. That was the revolution.
And let's focus on that word revolution, because this wasn't just about figuring out how to plant seeds. This was the moment humanity as a whole decided to stop wandering and put down roots. Literally. This shift to farming is what creates villages. The need to store surplus grain, that gives us pottery. This one idea, agriculture, set the stage for everything, and I mean everything that came next. So from those very first villages, humanity takes this absolutely incredible leap forward. All of a sudden, we're not just building settlements anymore. We are engineering some of the world's first and most meticulously planned cities.
The Indus Valley Civilization wasn't just advanced for its time. Its urban planning is just mind-boggling even today. We're talking about cities laid out on a perfect grid, with streets crossing at flawless right angles. And get this, every single brick they used was standardized to a perfect 4:2:1 ratio. That kind of uniformity screams a powerful, organized central authority. Oh, and their drainage systems? Covered, sophisticated, and frankly, better than what you'll find in many modern cities.
And this city planning, it tells a story about how their society was structured. Most cities were split into 2 distinct parts. You had the citadel, a raised area to the west, probably for rulers or big public rituals. That's where you find massive structures like the Great Bath. Then there was the much larger lower town to the east, which is where everybody else lived and worked. It's a clear map of public versus private life.
But this is the central puzzle of this incredible civilization. We can see their engineering genius in every single brick. We can admire their artistry on thousands of tiny, beautiful stone seals. But we can't hear their voice. Their pictographic script remains a complete mystery, one of history's greatest unsolved codes, locking away all their stories and secrets.
Okay, let's move forward in time, because after the great Indus cities fade, new waves of people and radical new ideas start to sweep across the subcontinent. This ushers in an age of transformation, leading to epic poetry and the rise of sprawling empires.
So what you're seeing here is a really dramatic social shift. In the early Vedic period, society was mostly based on herding cattle. The social structure, the Varna system, was pretty flexible. It was based on your job, not your birth. Women even had a voice in public assemblies. But as society moved towards settled agriculture in the later Vedic period, all that flexibility just hardened. The Varna system became a rigid hierarchy you were born into, and women's roles in public life shrank dramatically.
This period was a total explosion of change. On the political side, you had these 16 major kingdoms, the Mahajanapadas, all battling for control. At the exact same time, you had a philosophical revolution brewing. Thinkers like the Buddha were challenging old ideas and asking deep questions about life itself. All of this chaos and creativity eventually culminates in the rise of India's first truly massive empire, the Mauryans.
This quote really gets to the heart of the most profound transformation of the era. The Mauryan Emperor Ashoka wages a brutal, bloody war to conquer Kalinga, and the sheer horror of what he saw, it changed him completely. He renounced the sound of the war drum, military conquest, and instead adopted the sound of Dhamma. It was a radical new policy, to conquer not with swords, but with a moral code of peace, tolerance, and nonviolence.
Now, after the Mauryan Empire fell, there were centuries of fragmentation. But out of that period, a new dynasty arises, the Guptas. And they kicked off an era of such incredible cultural and scientific achievement that it's famously called a golden age.
The Gupta court wasn't just a center of power. It was like an intellectual all-star team. Imagine being in a room with Kalidasa, the Shakespeare of India, astronomers like Varamihira, who were mapping the heavens, legendary doctors like Don Ventari, and then there's the big one. It was in this era that the mathematician Aryabhata introduced the concept of zero to the world, a gift that would literally change the future of science and math forever.
Of course, this artistic explosion didn't just appear out of nowhere. Two very different styles had already developed, and this table tells a cool story. Up in the northwest, the Gandhara school was blending Indian subjects with a Greco-Roman realistic style. You can see it in the muscular bodies. But down in the heartland, the Mathura school was purely homegrown, focusing on spiritual feelings and using this very distinct red-spotted sandstone.
But maybe the most incredible legacy from this era's focus on knowledge was the founding of Nalanda. And we have to be clear, this wasn't just a monastery or a school. This was a massive international university. It drew thousands of scholars from all across Asia who came to study logic, medicine, math, and philosophy. It was a true lighthouse of learning for the ancient world.
Okay, so while all these empires were rising and falling in the north, something completely different and just as rich was flourishing way down south. So let's head there now to discover the Sangam Age with its own powerful kingdoms and a unique worldview tied directly to the land itself.
In the south, the power was held by three great dynasties known as the Three Crowned Kings. You had the Cheras, who got rich trading with the Roman Empire. You had the Cholas, famous for their powerful navy that commanded the seas. And you had the Pandyas and Madurai, who controlled the incredibly lucrative pearl trade. Each one was a powerhouse in its own right.
Now, this is a really fascinating concept, totally unique to the Southern culture. They saw their world through a lens they called thin eye. The idea was that the entire land was divided into 5 distinct landscapes, or ecozones. And this wasn't just about geography, it was a cultural map. Each zone came with its own god, its own jobs, its own way of life, all shaped by the natural world around it. And this just breaks it down perfectly. It's like your zip code decided your profession. If you lived in the Karinji Hills, you were a hunter. In the Malay forests, a herder. The fertile Maritime Plains, that's where the farmers were. And of course, the Nithal Coast belonged to fishermen. Even the harsh, dry Palai lands shaped its people, producing warriors and travelers. It's an amazing example of how geography can create coexisting microcultures.
But if you really want to find the soul of the Sangam Age, you have to look at its literature, especially its great epic poems. These are not just adventure stories. They're these profound, deep dives into love, justice, and spiritual journeys. They are really a window into the very heart of this civilization.
So, when we finally step back and look at the whole picture, the scale is just staggering. We've journeyed through 6 major eras, touched on 3 massive empires, and seen the birth of philosophies that changed the world. This chart just scratches the surface. It was truly a marathon of millennia.
You know, there's a famous saying, the past is never dead, it's not even past. And that has never felt more true. These ancient stories, from the city planner in the Indus Valley to Ashoka's revolutionary ideas on nonviolence, to the poets of the South, they're not just history, they're the living, breathing foundation of a civilization that is still evolving right now.
And this incredible journey leaves us with one final thought. We've seen mysterious scripts, genius engineering, world-changing philosophy, and breathtaking art. So the question for you to ponder is, of all these powerful echoes from ancient India's past, which one do you think rings the loudest in our world today?